I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Detrick. Jordan Redaelli is on vacation. Andrew Kuo takes no days off.
Yo, man, I'm watching Trump speak right now. The Dow Jones were like green all day. He steps up to the podium and they're just like tanking. They're all in the red. He's missing a bunch of shots, man.
So he's like the cooler.
He's the stock market cooler, yes, pretty much. Every time he gets up and talks, the stock market kind of panics and scrambles and sells off, which is pretty hilarious because thank God we have the money guy in charge of the presidency. He's not good at race relations or foreign policy, but at least he knows money, right?
He's running the country like a business, Quo, and the fact that you can't understand that indicates that you are not a business man.
Can we compare the White House people to their corresponding NBA counterparts?
Oh, man. I mean, Pompeo is kind of like Prop Joe from The Wire. Here's my thing. If every time Trump talks, the market goes down, what exactly is his plus minus? Like, are we talking Wigginsy? Are we talking about DeMar DeRozan in Toronto levels?
Shout out to Evan Turner. Anybody who steps on the court like R.J. Barrett, is he the R.J. Barrett of the White House? He just steps on the court.
That might be it. He might be the Kevin Knox of
oh no
of world leaders.
Don't do it to him.
To who? To Trump or Kevin Knox? I don't know who's the victim here.
To Trump, man. Oh my God, yeah, he is the guy who steps on the court and kind of Dion Waiters at his least entertaining.
Is Trump a chucker?
Trump is definitely a chucker. Low true shooting percentage, low efficiency. Basically, Kobe late in important games. That's a
come
dig.
on, not cool. You can
Too
lay
soon?
this at the feet of Kevin Knox.
Too soon?
Too soon. Stick with Kevin Knox. The comparison was apt.
So the Nasdaq is rallying, but someone put together a reel of Kobe Bryant game winners, and my least favorite tweet is like, Kobe Bryant game winners. That's just a tweet. That's the tweet. And I'm like, we know that it was a rare occurrence that Kobe kind of walked off heroic.
I mean, look.
Shout out to Kobe.
I don't know why you have this unquenchable desire to attack our idols after they've passed away. We've seen it happen with Big L. We've seen it happen with Guru.
Did I go after Guru?
We might have both done that.
Hard to Earn was a very good album.
You've gone after every one of our heroes as soon as they pass away. And I'm not going to sit here in the midst of an international crisis and have you going after the Kobe Mamba.
I tried
Kobe
to kill
Bryant.
Danny Ainge once. Well, maybe I'm
the Reaper over here.
Maybe I'm just pining for like 3 weeks ago when like we were trying to figure out how we could deal with like this surreal death of like basically an American hero, and now we're just dealing with something I don't understand.
Time is moving both very quickly and very slowly right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
The mourning and the confusion and shock we felt over the death of Kobe Bryant was only 6 weeks ago, and it feels simultaneously like yesterday and another lifetime ago.
I know, like the response to Kobe dying was so acute. It was just tears. It was just like weeping. The response to this is like this slow brewing anxiety that is taxing in a different way.
I think 2 or 3 days ago, another day we had a pod, unsurprisingly. I said that 9/11 was worse than this. And I'm going to walk that back. Because thus far in New York, we have not had the same kind of death toll to this point. But this is clearly already worse. I don't know what I was thinking. That was a very New York-centric approach to what is now going to be a national, international, planet-wide emergency. As many people have died in Italy as died in 9/11. So I retract that lower Manhattan-centric point of view. This is going to be far worse, far more economically devastating.
Yeah.
And we don't even know where it's headed. It could be 2 months, it could be 6 months, it could be a year. We just don't know. But let me say that if we're going to connect the incredible death toll in Iraq to 9/11 via U.S. policy, that also does play a factor in this comparison.
I hate equating these things, man. It's so different.
Oh, there's no point, and it's really distasteful.
Yeah, like civil wars in Africa are just like, when you just do a scratch of the surface there, I'm like, oh my God, what's happening there? How come the world isn't intervening and helping these communities? I'm like, I don't know. And I fear the economic impact of this virus, which is going to be the story of our lifetime. I don't know if there is an available bailout. I think we have to change as like a society a little bit and rework the way we treat human beings, which is really tough because this Asian stuff is ramping up. Trump just got in front of the podium and really dropped that word, that C-bomb onto us with conviction. And I'm like, right, he's trying to deflect blame from himself, but we're getting worse as people before we're going to get better, and it kind of coincides with the way a virus behaves.
I think what's important that will come out of this is a measure of clarity. And that doesn't mean things will get better or things will get worse. But I think to a degree, there has been a veil lifted about our vulnerability, our fragility, the lack of compassion and empathy for the common man from our leaders and from the wealthy. And the fact that we've seen these billionaires, Michael Bloomberg, $500 billion on trying to become the president, just vanish into thin air.
Where's Bloomdog, man?
Oh, you were willing to spend $500 million to become the president. Did that in a month and a half. Flamed out. You know what we could use right now? $500 million. I'm just in my bunker, man. I don't know about what.
This is why we need
are seeing
better leadership. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's the clarity that I'm speaking about. That we see how twisted America and the world is in ways that are unfathomably, unnecessarily cruel. Will we fix them? I don't know if it's a time for optimism, but they are certainly laid bare.
I mean, have you been following this story about certain, maybe the 4 senators or 5 senators at this point unloading stocks before the market crash?
I have been, yes.
I believe it's Richard Burr, Kelly Loeffler, a Democrat, Dianne Feinstein, a prominent Democrat, James Inhofe. Like they're part of the committee, or they have knowledge that me and you don't have. And I'm not even sure what that knowledge is, but they unloaded, we're not sure, but upwards of 1.5 million in the case of Burr before the market really tanked, before that money evaporated from his account. What's your take on that? People are calling for their resignation.
I don't know the details, specifics, but from what I've read, in the case of Burr and Loeffler, it looks Loeffler. It looks fairly clear cut from how it's been reported that they immediately dumped stock, like the day after or the day of learning about an impending crisis, with information that was given to them in secret meetings while simultaneously telling people that everything was going to be okay. And to me, it's that hypocrisy that we talk about. That's what makes things delicious, is that it wasn't as if they came out and said, man, the sky is falling, sell your shit. They came out and like, everything is going to be okay, while unloading millions. And in the case of Loeffler, investing in a telecom work from home company. I mean, that's the ultimate just fuck you. Yeah. Like, oh, it's not only that I know what's going to happen, I'm going to sell off my stuff. I'm going to try to make a little bit more, despite having so much money. That's the crazy thing. She has so much money, and she's like, I have to break the law, or I have to do this unethical thing in order to not lose a little bit more. Like, she has so much money.
The insider information was probably not that this virus. So Burr came out and was like, couldn't you guys tell there was going to be an issue with this virus? It was happening all over the world. I just made a decision based off of a world trend. But really the insider information was probably America's not equipped to handle this, which we
100%.
didn't know. And they got in front of podiums and said they were equipped to handle this. So that is especially devious, and this is the behavior of scoundrels a little bit. But what are politicians but scoundrels? And like,
as we realized yesterday, as we came to the conclusion after a long debate, that they're all pigs. we finally sorted it all out. There's a bunch of stat hogs.
I know. If your friend who's like the coolest guy who like will buy you a beer, not look for another beer back, and like is nice to you and will listen to you talk, if they said like, I'm gonna go into politics, I'd be like, I thought you were cool, man. It's like, no, I'm gonna be the good one. I'm like, okay. Huh. I'm sure you will be. No, I support that. Good people need to go into politics. They need to get paid. So these rich people who can afford to be in politics, like Bloomberg, don't end up having positions of power.
The biggest problem is that the people who go into politics are generally not normal people. Like the people who are on student council, the people who are really ambitiously driven for power and notoriety, but don't necessarily have a skill set. I'm going to go into politics. There are certainly true believers and like respect to all of them who are on the right side of issues, but there's also a sociopathic or narcissistic approach to saying, I should run this country.
Yeah. I think this year I had decided that my least favorite conversation to have socially was someone who was aspirational. And that really revolved around people who had like startup ideas. It's like, I have an idea. I'm like, right, you're the guy trying to sell a screenplay 10 years ago. It's like, someone wanting to corner the market on something. And this was before the whole WeWork, Casper kind of reckoning, Outdoor Voices.
The Purell entrepreneur.
Yeah. And I'm just like, this conversation is not that interesting to me, even though I love Shark Tank as entertainment. But being aspirational, maybe this is such a Gen X idea. Being a Gen Xer has ruined me, because I see aspirational people become successful and I'm like, nah, dude, I would never do that. Fugazi,
Yeah, so there's a guy who is really, really successful, and I'm just not saying his name because it doesn't matter. And he's been involved over the course of his life with all these different schemes, and some ended up making him a ton of money, and some ended up not being successful. At the end of the day, he has millions of dollars, and I'm like, not really envious and kind of scornful almost. It's a weird Gen X approach.
Yeah.
Where I'm looking at someone who kind of just finessed their way through ideas and some elbow grease, but really just connecting people, doing things, sort of to maneuver, dropping out of companies, buying in as like an entrepreneurial businessman. And I'm like, I can't really imagine being that kind of person.
And this is where I'm going to get hammered. But this is kind of where I defend these kind of people, right?
Oh, classic Burr bro behavior.
I mean, if this country is based off of the idea, just the idea of opportunity, and people see something that we need, whether that be the invention of credit cards, like that has helped a lot of people, the idea of credit. And we demonize that, but that has let people start their lives and buy homes and, of course, ruined a lot of other people. But I think the demonizing, I'm going to walk my own take back. Demonizing people who have big ideas is like the wrong move. I think
I'm not demonizing those guys. I'm saying it's a particular type of personality, as you suggested, that there is like a kind of person who is that go-getting entrepreneur, but it's almost rudderless. It's just about success. It's winding its way through ideas and failed ideas just to end up at a place of wealth and success. It's not really based on being a true believer in anything other than there being a goalpost.
Yeah, and I think we can evaluate entrepreneurs on a scale. Like, I think the Airbnb guys had a vision that they stumbled upon that was really incredible and that changed the way we thought about travel and space. And I really appreciate people who do create ideas that change our lives. But there's a certain type of investor that I'm just like, right, you have some swings to take and you're going to take them, and your job is just to swing. And that's okay. There has to be that in our society. My risk tolerance is so low that I cannot put my brain there.
At the same time, I think we can acknowledge that a society benefits from people who are willing to take risks and people who have ideas.
We need
those.
them.
Those are good things in sort of a theoretical sense. However,
Oh, man.
a lot of these companies we're talking about are based on an idea for a product that will work or a business that will succeed. And they're based on, as I alluded to before, a goalpost, wealth, success, a large company, lots of employees, a major player in an industry, cornering the market, making billions, expanding overseas. It's not necessarily about saying, you know what would make the world a better place. It's about success. And, this is capitalism, right? And this idea that it's the mother of invention. We can't say that Amazon has made the world a better place because it hasn't. We can't say that Airbnb has made the world a better place. We like it. We've used it. It's also helped to ruin neighborhoods and cities.
Yeah, I would argue on the opposite end of both those takes, but
I know you would.
yeah. I mean, it's
What I'm
in
getting
between.
to is the middleman.
Well, like
But I'm saying, though, like, there is no moral compass to any of these things. So more than likely, when they are driven by money and market share, you're going to end up in a place that's not overall positive. That's all I mean.
yeah, I mean, it's like you don't want Alta Vista as your search engine. It's just not as good as Google. Google has many faults that we can point out, but we want Google. We want Amazon, even though, as we know very well, Amazon has issues that they need to solve right away. But we actually want that service, especially now. So it's a really tough thing to figure out, and that's why I always kind of can't really pick a side when it comes to this, because if you were a politician in that room and you heard that America was not equipped to handle this virus, and you were sitting on a ton of stock that you could protect, you'd be like, should I protect that stock? And I would hope me and you would be like, that's not ethical, but someone might be like, yeah, I'm going to protect the shit out of my money.
Well, the real issue here is that politicians should not be able to own stock.
I agree too.
Like, that's what
yeah.
it comes down to. You're talking about a moral conundrum that is based on saying, you're going to lose millions of dollars, but you should just sit on your hands, versus saying, actually, I'm going to unload this and hopefully I'll get away with it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, we know what's right and what's wrong, but it's also in that position, you are creating an issue for individuals. It should just not be on the table overall.
I 100% agree with that. Those are the terms of service.
Yeah, so when we're talking about companies like Casper, for example, did someone say, I want to make the world a better place by enabling people to get mattresses online? That will make us a better civilization. No, it was that people don't know how to buy a mattress. It's annoying. You have to deal with salesmen. The names on the mattresses are all different. It's big. It's irritating to get home. I can come up with a better way to buy it, and the trade-off will be some convenience, and people like that.
I have a different framing for Casper, though.
But my point is only that, unlike or like most of these companies, it's built on a business model for success. It's not built on saying the world will improve if people can get mattresses online.
I understand that point. My framing is all these companies like Casper and even Outdoor Voices was kind of based off of Warby Parker and the success of that glasses company. I believe, as someone who wears glasses, that Warby Parker found a wrinkle in the market that helped my life. I can't wear those glasses because my gourd of a head is way too big for those normal glasses that normal people wear.
Your acorn squash?
Yeah, I can't wear those things, man. But I like them, and I like the company because we found out through like the 60 Minutes piece that the glasses industry was a monopoly. And why do like 15 screws or 5 screws and a bunch of plastic cost $400? Like, explain that. And they were busted. They were like, one company owns everything, and we mark the price up. So Warby Parker came out and be like, we're independent. You can have it for $100 with lenses. And I thought that was a life-changing idea. And it was so successful that other companies were like, could we do that in another industry? Which is, I think, a fantastic way to conduct business. See what people want, give them a good product, and see if there's other things we can do. And this is like razor blades, pillows, mattresses, athletic wear, Starberries, whatever you want to call, whatever industry you want to identify. And Casper, mattresses, good mattresses are very expensive and very overpriced. They're so
Absolutely.
overpriced, they're luxury items.
I agree. And I am not knocking these industries for existing. And I'm not saying that breaking up monopolies or democratizing the array of products at a different price point is bad. Of course that's good. I'm just saying that in general, they are based on an opening for business success.
Yeah.
And therefore, when Airbnb says people don't have the money or like staying in hotels because hotels are super expensive. Yeah. So let's come up with a way that people can travel with far more affordably and also live in neighborhoods and get a more immersive experience.
Yeah.
You're like, that makes the world a better place. But then there are the ramifications of that expansion that end up in a different place than where they intended.
Right. I think of Domino's Pizza a little bit, and people call that a tech company now. They used to sell pizza. They still do, but they're selling technology and a service now, because the pizza's pizza. It's negligible. You can get that pizza pretty easily delivered to you by many sources, but what they offer is an experience. And it's interesting how businesses pivot in the same way Dunkin' Donuts pivoted to a coffee company as opposed to a sugary, delicious treat house. People adapt, and I think technology is something we cannot ignore, and there's going to be misses, but the hits are more beneficial than I want to give them credit for.
So I've seen a few apps at times that I believe are for like getting your laundry picked up, getting it dropped off. Like there is a tech sort of solution to your laundry, as well as there have always been services for this. When I went up to get my laundry to pick up a bag earlier today, and this is a distinctly New York City
It's a New York ass problem.
issue. Yeah.
I'm with you, man. I'm stressed about my bag of laundry.
If you live in a house, you almost certainly have your own washer dryer. If you live in a big building or a condo, you either have it, a little closet or at least in the basement of the building.
Yeah.
But I don't have that. So I have to walk up the street to one of the few laundromats around here. And when I picked it up today, the woman was like, you know, some people are like all freaked out because, you know, I have to fold it myself, and they're worried about the laundry. And I'm like, yeah, true. And she's like, but we might get shut down. So come back and get it, you know, this afternoon, because if that lockdown comes, you're not going to get it back for months. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not going to be able to drop my laundry off or get laundry done in months. What's the solution here, Kuo?
Get out those hands, those tidy whitey washing hands, Ben. Time to get your scrub on.
This is bullshit.
More scrubs, as TLC once said. Yeah, it's stressful. I have a giant bag of laundry sitting up the street, and I tried to get it yesterday.
Yeah, you better get that.
I couldn't get it. They were closed yesterday.
Is this because you're doing all of your missions at like 10 p.m.?
Well, I was trying to do all my missions at 2 a.m., but now all the 24-hour spots are closed. I try to go out when there's the least amount of people. But I went yesterday, and my laundry's gone. But
in my mind, you are moving very furtively out there. Like quickly, decisively, yet furtively at 2 a.m. trying to get oat milk.
Straight lines, right to the Oatly. But that's a weird aside. My favorite neighbor is my laundry person. So I've been going to her for 15, 16 years, and she teaches me a little bit of Chinese every time. She's just like, oh, you know, like, how about this word today? And we chat for a second. And she's like my favorite neighbor. And I went in to drop off maybe last week, and I just like got the temperature a little bit. I was like, how you doing? And she was like, things are going to be okay. And it was like, it's so interesting. She's an immigrant from China, mainland China, and she has a family in Chinatown. I always see them at the park and kind of wave. And she's got 2 young kids, and she was just like, we got to stick together. This is okay. You know, just be safe. And then she's going to get shut down. And like, I just think that what people have to do is going to impede like the goodness people can do, which is frustrating to me. Because like she's a very comforting person in my life. And if she has to shut down her laundromat, I'm like, she's important to me a little bit, you know?
I went to a different laundromat for the last few months. Not for any reason other than it being slightly closer. And I went up there recently, and it was shut down. The gate was down. There was a note that was like, go to the barber shop next door to get your laundry. I was like, okay. So went there. The guy came over, lifted the gate, and, you know, as I'm picking up my laundry and paying for him, he tells me this was my mom's laundromat, and she shut down. And I'm getting really sad, you know. Oh, man, I know the rents are going up. He's like, no. She just got sick of washing people's clothes.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so it's a good story?
Yeah.
Fantastic. They were so mean. Just, honestly, I'm like, I didn't say this to this nice young gentleman who was getting my laundry, but like, man, you're the rudest mom.
I remember before Prince, this is the second time we talked about Prince Street Pizza this week. I forget which classic Cookies episode that was.
Oh, wow.
There's so many now.
189, maybe 190.
191.
187, maybe?
Yeah. At the famous Prince Street Pizza, where they did or didn't take bets on New York Knicks games featuring Carmelo Anthony, they made the best pizza in the neighborhood. They were awesome. They had the pesto slice that was like they were famous for, and they shut down. And I went in there. I was like, "Yo, what happened? Like, business seems better than usual." And they're like, "Oh, we're super tired of this, man. It's like not fun."
Yeah, this is some bullshit. We're out.
Yeah, they're like, "It's not fun, man. We want to like chill. We're gonna sell the business and like not work as hard." I'm like, "Yo, I'm gonna miss your pizza, but do you, man?"
How did we not call episode 187 Undercover Cop? A real squandered opportunity, and one that we can never get back.
Oh, can we just do it? Can we just episode 187.2 more 187s?
More Undercover Cops.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Utah Jazz.
Flu Lives Matter.
Well, speaking of Undercover Cops, President Obama.
Wait, can you repeat that? Speaking of undercover cops, former President Obama.
The good cop.
Oh, right, because they're
Barack Obama.
not all cops, right?
He's a good cop. He's playing the good cop. He put up a tweet the other day. I think it was yesterday. Time is
because he loves to take a stand
together.
when it's important, when we need his information,
When
his
we
opinion.
need him the most,
Yeah.
Obama steps up, as only an officer of the peace can.
Yeah.
No, so he gave a nice shout out to our friend Shay Serrano. And what Shay has been doing is really remarkable. He's been on Twitter giving out thousands of dollars to help people. And it's such a generous, uncalled for gesture. Like, really great that he's doing that. But Obama highlighted that, which is cool and incredible for Shay. Incredible. You have President Obama giving you accolades for your generosity. That's so cool. But then Obama said something like, this is the new way of giving. And it really kind of made me grind my gears. Because isn't that the last thing that you want the president or the former president who's a Democrat to be saying? That the new way of charity is upper middle class people out of the goodness of their heart giving hundreds of dollars to needy people on Twitter? Like, isn't that the antithesis of the government that we want to see in the future?
Yeah, I read that and I was like, this is kind of virtuous. And it took me a second. I was like, oh, this is just bullshit.
Yeah, no, I was like, that's so
fucking
cool.
bullshit.
Like, wow, what an amazing, laudation for Shay and a validation of his generosity. And I'm like, wait a minute, oh, that's Obama.
Yeah.
That's not just a random guy. That's not a hoops head.
Is this my king? Is this my king? Like, yeah, forget about like the actual wealthy and taxes and our government still not giving us a plan about anything. Oh yeah, if you're a self-made entrepreneur and you are like distinctly successfully middle class, give away your money to people who need it. I'm like, fuck out of here, man.
I'm like, I don't know what Obama donates. But Obama is probably out of the 8-figure department at this point. I don't know what he donates. Maybe he donates a lot.
Yeah.
But like, he probably has a foundation, so it's all intermingled.
We know.
But
how
to
those
say that
foundations
someone
work.
who has a couple best-selling books and has
Netflix
done well
deal.
for himself and is obviously a fantastic success story, but to point to that guy and say, this is the way that charity will work, people who have had upper middle class success should be doling out money on Twitter to people who need their light bills fixed, instead of saying, if only the government was like this.
I mean, we joked yesterday about feeling powerless, and my solution was like the drug dealer solution. Like, can we just have a box truck with a ton of money and just like throw it off the back of it? Because how are people going to get this money? We talk about all these bailouts. Like, your check will be in the mail right now, which means 3 weeks. I'm like, we don't have 3 weeks, man.
But Obama, I'm not on Twitter. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
No insulin.
I mean, counting other people's money is an American tradition, and we're doing it in another way. Like, shouldn't the richest people do that? And a lot of these rich people are saying, yo, we made this money by taking risk and building it up. I pay my taxes. The taxes should take care of this, which I'm like, right. I'd rather Obama say, like, what Shay Serrano is doing is wonderful. We should not be in this situation where he, as a private citizen, has to do this. The government has to inject a security for our citizens and our undocumented citizens.
Yes.
To help them.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Instead of saying, here it is, the future of philanthropy.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait. No.
What?
No. This is the present. This is now.
Ben Simmons, let me see your checkbook. Have you given $100K away? I need to see it now.
In the future, Americans will give via Amazon wish list.
Wow. Look at this performative dexterity. I have not seen this side of you, man. Wonderful.
You will give every cam girl. I think I just slipped into my Bill Clinton.
That sounds like Young Hoof, too.
Young Hoof.
Hoof.
Young Hoof and the place to beat.
Yeah.
So, what you were also just referring to is that this idea that because a few NBA players, guys who have a lot more money than Shea Serrano, no disrespect to the god, Shea, I'm saying people who do have large contracts, that many NBA players also were really generous. And like Zion Williamson, above and beyond the Call of Duty. Kevin Love. These guys, and Zion, to be clear, only makes like, $9-10 million a year. Not to say only, but in comparison to, say, Kevin Love, who makes like 25 or 30.
Yeah, Zion's wealth is not his value.
And he's only played a portion of 1 year. Like he hasn't even gotten that full salary. That's just an incredible gesture by like a really good young man. But it's also led to people saying, okay, other basketball players, why aren't you giving? Where's your donation to the coronavirus? Why aren't you giving to the employees?
Yeah.
And like, are you kidding me?
Foul. It's foul. It's a awful way to live your life, man. Like it's so repulsive to me that people do that a little bit, but we just did it to like rich people, like bankers. Fair. So like we are also our worst enemy, which is whatever, not a surprise. But I think specifically someone from Philly who gets more traction than he should, I think, called out Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and Tobias Harris net zero for not doing the things that Zion Williamson and Kevin Love did. And I'm like, let's not do that. Can we as a society just like not do that?
Well, I think one of the key points of differentiation between us saying, where's Bloomberg? And where is Jeff Bezos? Where are they? Is that the amount of money they have is very different from the amount of money that professional athletes have. And I know the amount of money that professional athletes have is also very different from that the average person has. But we are talking about the richest people in the planet. Like the top.
But you can't spend their money in 5 generations.
When we talk about Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, it's very easy to say, yes, but the Sixers owners all have more money than them. There is an immediate organizational comparison you can make. Yeah. Why would you ever point at players and say it's your job and not ownership who have literal billions? That is like the handiwork of someone who is just a cretin. There's no other way of doing it. Or they're intentionally targeting, say, athletes, black players, young, rich black men that irritate them personally. The idea that like young, rich guys, black dudes have money and that bothers me. So therefore I'm going to villainize them.
I desperately, as a Chinese person living in America, want someone to ask Donald Trump why he uses the C-bomb before the coronavirus. And I just want him to say, because white people are better than them, just say it. Like you just allude to this constantly and dog whistle being like, well, that's where the origination is from. I'm like, just come out and say it. And that's kind of how I feel about this specific instance with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris. Like, just come out and say it. Just be like, these guys should be grateful that we let them make this money in America.
I mean, that's always the undercurrent, right?
Yeah.
Is that these guys don't actually deserve their money. It's a product of a system in which they are unjustly rewarded because they're good at sports. And it's different from someone who is good at business. And it's different from someone who is in a hedge fund guy.
Listen, Ben, if I was 6'10" and had the passing skills and court vision of Ben Simmons, I would shoot threes let me tell you the threes I would shoot. Let me tell you about the honest defenses I would persuade.
The defense would be so forthright when you were on the court. Just so genuine and true blue.
Right.
But we're also giving way too much of our incredibly valuable airtime to moronic takes that are incredibly regional and fortunately are a vestige of the past. I think that kind of approach is so prehistoric that it gets laughed at, and we're actually doing what that kind of troll wants. The attention for outlandish, dinosaur-ass bigoted takes.
Yeah, and they're bait too, so we fell for the bait. But I can't say this enough. I think all these athletes are underpaid, and they don't owe us anything.
The only counter I will say is that just as how cool it is that Shea is willing to donate money to people in need, it's also very cool that players who make millions of dollars are willing to do that, and so forth. Like, let's not take away the generosity of people who do it, but it's also not their duty. It's the duty of the state to take care of people. And if you want that to happen, you need to tax the people who make millions and millions of dollars more, and then you can absolve them of this need to be philanthropic, which I would say is certainly not, ideally, the future of giving.
Yeah. All we're asking is for everyone to be taxed in the same way, which seems like such a simple idea, but we cannot get that through. Like, well, if you're a leading pillar of our community, like Jeff Bezos, like, we need to give you a break. Like, James Dolan does not need to pay property taxes on MSG because you go there, but you need to pay property taxes if you want to own in New York.
I think people would be shocked if they understood what tax rates in the United States were like in the past. Absolutely just bewildered, because the numbers have changed due to inflation. But there was a tax at one point where if you made something over, or the money you made over something around, I guess the equivalent now of like $2.5 million, was taxed at 95%.
Yowza.
People don't understand how we used to be taxed and how we had social programs and how that was erased by Goldwater, Reagan, Nixon, and just wave after wave of Republicans, and how we've kind of been brainwashed into thinking that we shouldn't be taxed or our taxes are still too high, despite the fact that we are not taxed that much, other than we get very little for what we give.
And Obama wasn't a shining knight in this scenario either. He let it happen too.
For sure. I'm mostly, absolutely. And Bill Clinton. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying that's been kind of erased from history.
Yeah.
The amount of money that was taxed from people over a certain income bracket was astounding in the past. And that's why people didn't have these kind of accumulations of wealth. I mean, you had the Rockefellers and people like that, but it wasn't someone like, I don't know, Bezos, whose company isn't paying taxes.
I sort of think about this sometimes when people come down really hard on like Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, being like, oh, these dumb communists, these socialists. And I'm like, yeah, but we pay taxes. And I'm like, oh, right, you don't. Like, my bad. I forgot that you don't really pay taxes the same way we do, because I'm like, we're already in a supportive community where I give up so much money every year and it's okay because this is the society we live in. And then I realize somebody probably isn't.
But the major grievance against taxes is that we don't get shit.
Yo, can we fix the subways?
We don't have good subways. Nice? Yeah. We don't have medicine. We don't have
drug tests. We don't have virus testing.
we have weapons that are being used to kill people to further not even our interests particularly around the globe. And we have policemen and a militarized police force. And then we have public schools that could probably use a lot more help.
Yeah.
And we have roads and infrastructure that is crumbling. Like, there's not a great payoff for what taxes are being collected.
And New York is such a microcosm of that and our subway system. But like, we're almost maybe 15, 20 days from the start of when this virus became an issue. And the government and local government's message to us today on Friday is hang in there, everybody. What? Like, we know you're suffering out there. Hang in there. I'm like, oh, you guys, come on. Can we get someone smart up in here? Like, can we just like relieve you of your duties and send in like a hockey shift of like 3 Andrew Yangs? Like,
Well, you're lucky because someone is coming to the rescue.
ooh,
His name is Ice Cube.
yes,
The big three,
my king.
contrary to what I said yesterday, will continue. They plan a quarantine basketball 3-on-3 tournament. The game lives on. Is this a good idea?
I don't know. Like, wrestling has done it, and those optics are incredible. They've been wrestling to empty rooms, but with the lights and all the bravado and like the calling out, the call and response, it's incredible. Ice Cube's league is like tough to watch as it is. It's a bunch of Catino Mobleys rolling around, and like, you know, you got your Joe Johnsons in there, but like even ISO Joe on the Nets wasn't riveting television. It's gonna feel really weird. I think we're gonna get hyped about it, turn it on, and be like, ooh, not like this.
Yeah, I'm not going to denigrate the players in the league because a lot of them were NBA stars. They were some of the best players on the planet. They're now older than that. And I think seeing Joe Johnson, 1 year removed from the NBA, go in there and just destroy people after not being able to be a contributor on a current NBA team was fairly telling about the talent level in the big three. But again, these guys are still, far to the end of the bell curve of basketball ability.
Oh, of course.
But to what you said, I'm not sure this is the salve for our basketball wound that is festering.
I mean, I love Nate Robinson, and he kind of makes it more performative. He starts fights. He talks trash. Like, that's the stuff I want in the big three. I want the NCAA to release all these young men from their duties to their universities. And, like, wouldn't it be cool to see a bunch of players that maybe aren't going to be in the draft play in the big three, like 19-year-olds? That'd be awesome.
That would be cool. I would like that. I am also a bit reluctant to encourage any sort of interaction between people when we're talking about refs and players and coaches. But maybe because it's so limited that there's only 3 guys and there's 1 ref who can stay away from the action, maybe you can mitigate that with, testing, some isolation.
Less than 10 people.
And because you're not having 2 NBA teams, which each have 15 players and whole support staffs and coaches, where it's like, oh man, it's just going to be these 6 dudes and a ref. And like, they've all been tested and everybody's good to go. I guess there is a possibility in the same way, as you said, those amazing visuals of wrestlers going through their routines and their antics in front of no one. It was really charming.
Yeah, and it was really generous, and it was surreal and super cool. I don't think Ice Cube should do this. I don't think we need this. This feels like he's maybe seeing an opportunity, but opportunity is important, and a lot of these players could really use something to do, the money, and I'm not going to stop someone from making their money, and I might watch, I love all these guys. Like, these are the players we rooted for a decade. Like, it's going to be nice to see them again.
The idea that we need some basketball to watch is pretty flimsy.
I agree.
Like, we don't. Yeah. We don't need basketball to watch. But I'm also not going to say that he's a craven capitalist for saying, hey, we can do this now. People want to watch basketball. We can provide it. We can come up with a safe way of doing it, and it'll help us. It'll help our brand. It'll help our players. We'll be the only game in town. And saying, if we can do this in a way that's safe, there's an upside for us, and people probably would like to see it anyhow. I'm not mad at his calculus here.
Right.
But it does come down to what are the hazards, and it's really interesting seeing now TV networks. This is a different topic that is kind of interesting. Seeing the way that, say, typing, right, has devolved, going from capitalization to now if someone puts a period on a sentence in a text, like, what did I say wrong?
Yeah, or all caps.
Right. The sort of de-evolution of production quality in that regard, and the written word, and seeing now national television shows being broadcast with like people on their phones from their houses.
Yeah.
Everything is like regressing in this really interesting, almost democratic way, where you're like, oh, you're on ESPN, but you have to do this the same way everyone else does on Zoom or your phone. Yeah. And I know they'll go back to the studios, but if this lasts a while, we're going to see standards really drop in a way that's kind of interesting.
Or kind of come back. Like I really like the John Oliver show on HBO, and he did it from a remote studio location just with a white backdrop, and all the audience was gone, and it was a shorter show with a much lower production. But people start figuring things out, right? And like start getting creative. And I'm really looking forward to that, because I think we're in for the long haul. But we're going to see an uptick on like, well, I can turn my room into kind of a makeshift set.
That's exactly what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
In that, if John Oliver has to record his show by himself with a white wall on what appears to be Skype or, a simple camera, then like there's nothing stopping you in terms of the same way the music industry was upended by home studios.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't actually have to go in and pay $150 an hour with an engineer.
Yeah.
You can just sit at home with, a USB keyboard and rock out.
I mean, shout out to the YouTubers in Vine and Snapchat and now Instagram Live. Like, these are some truly creative people who do this in like small rooms in Hong Kong or New York City. Like, it's awesome.
And maybe that's what it is, that now we are used to seeing on a large level the YouTuber whose production values are often not great. And now it looks the same as what's being put out by the biggest media companies in the world.
Right. Did you see that video that Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman, tried to push on us of all these A-list celebrities singing Imagine by John Lennon spliced together? And, none of them have makeup. They're all doing, they're at home or like in their backyards. And like it has such an earnest quality to it. And it was actively rejected by the internet.
How many seconds did you make it into that video?
To be honest, like 15. I saw clips of people dragging it, but I don't really have a high tolerance for the Beatles, but stuff like that, it kind of doesn't interest me.
No, I think I made it through 5 to 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And then started skipping forward to see who else was in it, and then stopped at Will Ferrell for a second, and then skipped through the rest and was like done with it, but also angry.
Yeah.
I was like, that sucked. That actively sucked.
Well, it's sort of like you're on a date that's going great, a first date that's going great, and everything's going well. You're like, oh, I'd definitely go on a second date with this person. And then they're like, oh, ask me about the Celtics. I'm like, no, don't ruin this. Like, you don't have to do this. We're doing okay. This is an unforced error. Don't bring up Jason Tatum. And that's how I feel about this video. Like, this is such an unforced error.
Hey, I was thinking for date number 2, we could go to a burlesque show.
No.
No. Yeah, it's at the Slipper Room. You'll love it. No.
I know of a place on Christie Street. It's like, no.
Now we're going to Arlene's Grocery. No.
oh, I have a Bandcamp link for my band. I'm like, no.
No. No. Let's go back to that Imagine video. That was great.
Yeah.
I like the part where they sang.
But it was like, I think the thing that turned me off was it was such a clear branding move in a time where we're like kind of looking for leadership. And it was, shoot or shoot. And you have to shoot your shot. And these celebrities want to do something good. And I like celebrities. I'm a fan of movies and of Ben Affleck. But this just felt like you don't have to do this for us. Like, our opinion of you is okay. Like, you don't need to save us like this.
Oh, okay. Guys, everything is fine. The celebrities are here. They're singing. Yeah. We're good to go.
Yeah. And the
hunker down because Wonder Woman is singing a John Lennon song.
And I liked Wonder Woman so much. I can't wait for the sequel. I like that actress. She was cool, Wonder Woman. But, like, the reaction was equally gross too, where people are like, all you rich people should be giving your money up. I'm like, not that either. Like, just don't sing John Lennon songs like that. We know what you're going for, and like, we all kind of shoot our shots that way in life, but we edit ourselves, and they just, like, they won't do it again, I'm sure.
Well, so something good came from the hateful response. A lack of future celebrity Frankenstein uplifting songs.
Maybe. I hope so. I don't like the uplifting songs, but if someone wanted to like live tweet their like breakfast routine, like, I'm probably gonna watch that. It's interesting to me.
You know what? I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think we've seen the last of the celebs.
Well, we're all trying to figure out how to do this, right? Like, I rewatched the Larry David Curb Your Enthusiasm episodes about Anonymous and Ted Danson. The plot, I mean, we've all seen it, but
I haven't seen it.
There's like a wealthy, a generous donor to, I believe, like, Larry started. Now I'm forgetting, but there was a generous philanthropist who donated money, and he was listed as anonymous. And the whole joke was like, well, I know who Anonymous is. And it's like, oh, you know that it's Ted too? It's like, isn't he such a great guy? He wants no credit for it. And he goes around being like, I don't want to tell everybody, but I'm anonymous. And Larry's like, well, then why don't you just put your name on the board? He's like, no. We're not doing that. We're doing this out of the kindness of our heart. But, it's me, which is hilarious. And like, there's opportunity everywhere for a sort of like profit, and it doesn't even have to be money. It could be like social collateral. And I think people should do their thing and whatever they're comfortable with. Like, it is frustrating giving money away and having no one say thank you, but some people do.
That's true. I don't know. I donated a little money to the employees of a friend's restaurant, and I put my name on it. I was like, I want you to know I'm down with the team.
Yeah.
It's not that I want to be thanked. I just want you to know I'm down with the team.
Yeah. I got some thank you.
I don't want you to think that I didn't give. Like, I want you to know I'm trying to participate.
Yeah, I do the tip thing where I'm just like, well, if a tip is unseen, does it count? Like, I don't know. It's a really weird position, but getting a thank you letter from a nonprofit it feels nice, man. I'm not going to deny it. I'm like, you're welcome. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I mean, there are times when I've given anonymously, but this is like a friend's thing. I'm like, I want you to know I'm thinking of you guys in this time.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, if it was something that was public, like a larger foundation, I would be anonymous.
I forget which art critic said this, or artist maybe said this, but he said the best way to support a painter is to buy something. You can't just be like, oh, this exposure is good for you. Aren't you glad that I made everyone aware of your painting? And the painter's just like, will you buy it? Because I have like bills. And I think about that all the time. It's like, well, I'm going to use my celebrity to cast a light on something that hasn't been shown. And sometimes I'm like, oh, but your money is so valuable here. And we're doing the thing. Like, I'm criticizing the thing I criticized, Sean Penn was on TV on CNN and people roasted him last night. however you feel about Sean Penn, he does a lot of good stuff in the world. And like, as soon as you Google it, you're just like, oh, this guy's kind of, aside from what you feel about him as a person or his acting roles, he does a lot of stuff around the world, man. And people were roasting him, and I'm like,
He captured
this
El
sucks.
Chapo.
Ooh, that was, talk about writing. But yeah, that was an interesting one, that Rolling Stone article. But you know, he has an organization. He travels around the world, and he has people everywhere trying to help other people. And I am not mad at that.
Look, we've talked a lot this show about who's supposed to give money, who's not, who owes society in general. And I think the commonality that we keep coming back to is that it's the government. The government has to figure out ways to take care of its people, and it can't fall on individuals. And that's not to say that we can't criticize an individual for not giving, or that an individual should be criticized for not giving. It's kind of a situation in which we've been pitted against each other by neglect from our, like the structure of the government itself, where, oh, you're rich, give me some money.
Yeah.
I don't have to give you my money or give you any money. Like, this has been the theme of this whole show. And it's really just the fact that we don't have a government that takes care of its people.
Right. We don't have leadership. We don't have the resources. We were not
But the thing is, we do have the resources, and that's
Right,
what the irony is. We have tons of resources. We have all this money. We're the wealthiest nation in the history of the planet.
Yeah.
And we somehow are operating like
on a shoestring budget.
as if we've been relegated.
Yeah. I mean, it's disappointing. I'm disappointed in our country.
Right. I think that is a key word.
Yeah.
Disappointing.
Yeah. It's humbling, and like it's depressing, man. And I just wish we had a plan. I wish we had a leader. I wish we had like some goodness in some leadership roles, right?
Trust me, buddy. Your guy Joe Biden is on the way.
That young buck hasn't lived long enough to understand the ups and downs of the world.
Without darting fully back into politics here, where is Joe Biden? Why is he not doing things?
He's in the cipher with his malarkey mob, man. It is
kind of nuts. Baby. This guy is ostensibly the opponent of the president in an impending election. Nothing. Just crickets.
To give him credit, he's been all over TV. He's been nonstop.
Joe Biden.
Yes, he's on CNN quite a bit. Every day he says something. He's doing stuff. He's also running a campaign currently. And this is on the White House. Let's not blame Joe Biden.
I'm not blaming him.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, at least from my vantage point, because I don't watch TV. So, he is appealing to his boomers because they watch television and cable news. I'm just saying,
you should follow
I have
him,
not seen shit.
Unblock him, maybe. Unmute him, maybe.
I don't follow him or mute him or block him.
You're off the Biden grid.
Honestly, I don't ever see anything he ever does like retweeted into my timeline.
Well, that's why. I mean, he's out there. He's actually been. That's why he had such an easy Super Tuesday, in my opinion, last Super Tuesday, because he has been very vocal. And your boy has been criticized, Bernie, for not talking about.
What are you talking about, Biden?
Oh,
Biden,
wow,
that's just
weird.
That's just an insane statement. Stop triggering me.
Yeah, I know, it's too easy.
It's an insane statement.
But Bernie.
Bernie's done like a whole bunch of
do you follow
fireside
Bernie?
Chats. No, Bernie's done all these public things.
Do you follow him on Twitter?
No.
You don't follow Bernie Sanders on Twitter?
No.
Do you get Bernie Sanders tweets about Bernie? So you are also off the grid on Bernie.
I see what Bernie says all the time.
So you're on the grid with Bernie and off the grid with Biden.
Yes.
Do you think that's the reason why you think Bernie's doing everything?
Where's
Biden's
Biden? Where is Joe is currently trending?
Yeah, by who? People who don't support him, probably.
No, I think it's from everyone. Everyone wants to know where he is.
Also, blaming a certain race of people and blaming Joe Biden for something the White House should be doing is wild to me. Like,
I'm not blaming Joe Biden. I'm
Oh.
saying Joe Biden is running against Donald Trump. Donald Trump is flailing. He is doing a horrific job endangering American lives. Where is Joe Biden?
But this is such an easy calculus, right? Trump is flailing. Let him flail. You do not need to. You do not need to punch him while he's down.
And yet 55% of Americans, according to a new poll, think he's doing a good job.
I mean,
Where's the Democratic Party pushback? They're not. The Democrats are soft, and they always can be cowed into saying, "Oh, okay, yeah, we won't do it now. Now is not a time to be political." They always do this. They always fold instead of being aggressive and attacking in the way that Republicans always do, and that's why Democrats are losers.
I don't share any of those opinions with you,
Well,
but
they're all correct.
but I understand where that frustration and that anger is coming from, for sure. I get it.
Pelosi and Schumer got outflanked by Mitt Romney on the left.
Yeah, they're like so old and they've been in politics for so long, and like they don't have the vitriol that we do, and maybe that is their problem. But Republicans had to suffer through 8 years of Obama.
Suffer through.
They were not happy at
Yeah,
all.
them being unhappy is different from suffering through.
Okay, they were unhappy with Obama for 8 years, and they went at him, and they lost.
And they were obstructionists the whole time anyway. Nothing even happened.
And I think like the Democrats have tried, but like they don't have the Senate. This is just a numbers thing.
I get that part, but the Democrats, in my estimation, have not tried at all because they're the good cops.
I mean, we've talked about this a lot this week, and like, I think your frustration with the way the Bernie thing played out is real, and I'd be frustrated too. But like, we need to like get some Gen X tranquility about this, I think, and understand what we're looking at, because Coutinho Mobley should be in the NBA because he's my favorite player.
Nope.
But he's not.
No, Joe Biden is an unacceptable candidate. He is an unserious candidate, and he needs to step aside, or Bernie's coming third party.
I mean, we have the most unacceptable, most unserious president in history.
For sure.
And I think we just have to, I keep on saying this, we have to accept the terms of what this government is. We can't always we can't shake our fists at clouds, because these rules have been presented to us. And we can't just be like, I don't agree with these rules. I'm like, okay, then you just don't agree. Yeah, I mean, change happens, but like, not in the way that you want to favor your point of view, right? Politics is so complicated in the way that if you think you have a virtuous idea, and I think every single person on earth thinks they're the most virtuous person, and then people have a different virtue, it gets complicated, and you just can't like shout your way to power.
I don't know what that really means, because you're saying that if there's like moral, ethical relativism where everybody thinks they're correct, then why should your particular viewpoint be the one that succeeds because you believe in it? Like I understand that.
Yes.
I understand that basis framework.
You don't win a game because you have the best
We're talking about
players.
specifics.
Yes, right. So the Bucks will probably, if this season was going, the Bucks would maybe lose and not get to the championship because it's really hard to, and a lot of things happen, like Klay Thompson ruptures his knee and Kevin Durant pops an Achilles, and then you're done. But on paper, they should be champions because the Warriors were that best team, but they are not. And the process played out, and we have Trump as the president.
I think you can totally view last year's finals in a somewhat similar framework to the Biden-Bernie dynamic, where you can say, well, we know that Golden State was the best team and that the Raptors won because of certain factors, namely that guys on Golden State got injured.
We handed
no one would say
Kawhi the trophy. No one,
right? But again, that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, and Warriors
We're not.
fans.
No one would say that the best team last year was the Raptors, but we can all acknowledge that they won the championship. And I think that's what we're talking about with Biden and
Are
Bernie.
they fraudulent?
I mean, sure, kind of.
No,
but I mean,
not.
of course, the Raptors are kind of fraudulent.
No,
They're an awesome team, but of course they're fraudulent.
No, they had to beat the team that was weak. You know, like it.
That doesn't diminish them. They don't get it taken away, but of course they're fraudulent. They would have beaten Golden State at the height of its powers with a healthy Durant and Clay.
We'll never
they just
know.
wouldn't have done it.
We'll never know.
They had no chance.
No, we'll never know. They might have. That's the whole problem with the sample size of an NBA season. We'll just never know if both teams were at full strength. Maybe Kawhi could have still done it.
Disagree, but that's a totally reasonable concept. I'm just saying, when we're talking about Bernie and Biden, I view it that same way. I'm like, well, yeah, Bernie was hamstrung by not having these certain advantages. It's not the same as being injured, but I look at it and I'm like, well, Biden is not our real champion here. Biden sucks. Anyway, you know my opinion on Biden.
Yes, yeah. I don't have to trigger you anymore.
I don't need to belabor this. You baited me into Biden talk. I feel like he is fundamentally unacceptable as a candidate. Not into it.
Can we talk about someone on Earth who we both really love and maybe doesn't get enough love from the greater community? You know who I'm talking about?
Is this about the nostalgia that folks have for the Knicks teams of the 90s, early 2000s? Is that where we're headed with this?
Ooh, this sounds like a path I'd gladly walk down.
So some of these guys, let me ask you, are you talking about, I don't know, Allen Houston?
Not mad at Allen Houston, but nope, he's not the one.
John Starks.
I'm not the biggest Starks guy in the world, but I have loving memories of him, but he's not the one either. Oh, are we talking about Keith Van Horn?
Charles Oatley?
Rest in peace, Anthony Mason, who would do so well in this era.
It's got to be one of these guys.
I feel like everyone talks about these guys, even Derek Harper, but is it another player that no one ever talks about?
Latrell Sprewell.
Who would be Splinter in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle NBA movie?
Who is it?
Or Shredder.
Who is
or
this?
Shredder.
Who is this mystery New York Knick?
Is it the only Knick in the last 2 decades that they drafted and re-signed to a contract extension?
Kristaps Porzingis. No, they didn't re-sign him.
Is it David Lee Dog? No, they signed and traded him away.
He went to Golden State.
Yeah.
Who is this mystery man?
Charlie Ward.
Charlie Ward.
What a king.
Underrated. Forgotten New York Knick with all the nostalgia of the 90s, Van Gundy era, early 2000s, team that went to the finals in 99. No one talks about old Charlie Ward.
Talk about a player who would do great in this era, who is slyly one of the more valuable players on all those reasonably interesting teams. And, in that time, Charlie Ward would start the game. He would play the first quarter. And then these odd substitutions. Chris Childs was the closer for the first and second half, which is really weird because Charlie Ward was the better player.
Tell us why Charlie Ward was much better than we regard him as. At the time, he was viewed as a role player, a bench guy, played some defense, took care of the rock a bit. Can't
wait till Chris Childs gets in there. He's the one who punches Kobe in the jaw. He's the one who wants to take that big shot. Charlie Ward
Why was Charlie Ward... Actually, I retract that. We understand why people overlooked Charlie Ward, but with the gift of hindsight and more access to numbers and knowing that the progression of the NBA occurred in a certain way that it did, what stands out to you about Charlie freaking Ward?
The economy of his decisions. He was kind of the prototypical 3-and-D guard. He was a pretty good defender. His steal rate was above average, if not in the top of the league.
Top of the league for sure. Several years, I believe it was top 5, if not a couple times, maybe even higher.
Tenacious on-ball defender. He's exactly who we want Frank Smokes to become. He doesn't take a ton of shots, so he doesn't average a ton of points, so we don't realize that the shots he is taking or did take were 3-pointers. And in that era, it wasn't really understood economy as it is now, where you have a guard who's a very good defender, who's very stingy with his shot selection and just takes the most valuable ones.
The first time I vaguely remember encountering the phrase 3-and-D seems like it was about Bruce Bowen.
Yeah,
or at
that
least
makes sense.
he was also regarded as like the archetype in modern basketball.
Yep.
So we didn't have that terminology back when Charlie Ward was protecting the Garden. And again, being able to look back and see a fantastic point of attack defender, high disruption with steals. We don't have deflection stats from that era, who judiciously took half of his shots from three, which was almost unheard of. And despite the fact that he didn't take that many, was among the league leaders in the percentage of his shots that came from behind the arc.
Quickly, career field goal attempts 5.4, 3-point attempts 2.8.
That's extremely modern.
Yeah, very
Now,
much so.
They played at a far slower pace and got far fewer field goal attempts
Much
up
slower pace.
in that era. Yeah. They were churning up the court at like 88 possessions a game or something.
Those grinders, man, they just wanted it more.
Now it's like league average is 110. Or, I'm sorry, league average is 100. So back then, they were probably going up to like 87. But Charlie Ward embodied a position that's still actually very rare in the NBA right now. And I remember, just to bring this quickly to the Sixers, when I was like, how do you find a guy who can knock down some threes, but guard point of attack? There aren't that many. It's an odd skill set. There are not many guys who can shoot enough to spread the floor, handle the ball, and also guard capably on the perimeter. Not many at all.
Yeah. And I know we don't like BPM as much anymore, but we only have the numbers we do. Charlie Ward led the league in defensive BPM in 98 with 3.4.
Did he really?
3.4. Yeah, and that
He's
doesn't make
basically
sense to me.
He's basically
but yeah.
Chris Dunn with a jumper.
Ooh, Chris Dunn with a jumper would be a really interesting player.
Gnarly.
Yeah. His career BPM is 2.1. In that season where he led the league in defense, it was 4.1. That's a star.
Yeah,
That's a
just
really
to give
good player.
Now the BPM has been perverted by the
Perverted monks.
by the Boston media mafia in order to take into account Jason Tatum's rampant chucking. You kind of have to throw the whole set out.
I know.
But Charlie Ward with a number of 4 as a BPM. That is, as Kuo mentioned, the number that a star would put up. Now, granted, he was a role player, and if nothing else, it measures how good you are at your role.
Yeah.
But anyone who is putting up a 4, especially as a perimeter player, is giving you star-like production with what they're doing. Yeah. He didn't shoot, so he wasn't hurting you from a scoring perspective.
Right.
But he was giving the Knicks star-like production over the course of 20 minutes a game, or whatever the hell he played.
And there's a kind of discussion here because Ben Falk at Cleaning the Glass on his website states that BPM is like sullied. It's dirtied by the fact that of players who are teams that rely on certain players to score, it hurts their BPM. So as soon as you get more usage, your BPM drags a bit, and he spends a lot of time trying to fix that noise. So players like Charlie Ward and Mitchell Robinson really benefit from BPM in theory because they're not tasked with isolation play.
But they also benefited more before these shifts were made in order to help Jason Tatum. So Charlie Ward leading the league in BPM as a guard
defensive
and
BPM.
posting in defensive BPM and posting a BPM of 4.1 for a season after the equation has been manipulated to help players who play very differently from him because he was not a volume scorer or creator or shooter is really, really impressive.
Yeah. And the spike I'm looking at on Basketball Reference is his block percentage was 1.2 that season. He was blocking shots. The year before he was 0.7, and the year after he was 0.4. So he was getting his hands on a lot of shot attempts, which kind of boosted his value. He was awesome, and we don't talk about him because he's boring and he didn't score and he didn't have signature moments because he didn't play down the stretch. But he started halves for the Knicks.
And I will retract one thing I just said. I mentioned that he played 20 minutes a game on some of those really good teams. In the year where, he was exceptionally productive, he was playing, by today's versions, almost starters minutes, 28 minutes a game. And on that team, by BPM, Patrick Ewing's was 4.2.
Yeah, he's 4.1.
And he only played 26 games.
Yeah.
And Charlie Ward's was 4.1.
Yeah.
And the next highest guy who was relevant was Charles Oakley.
Maybe that's our mission during this time of Rona, is to shout out these players. And we talk about Oakley and Mace so much, rightfully so. But Charlie Ward held it down for these bullies.
And because he wanted it more, he balled out in the playoffs.
Yeah,
he had a couple
nice.
great playoff runs.
Was he the player P.J. Brown flipped over during that brawl? He was, right? He just completely got flipped over by P.J. Brown of the Heat. And
I'm going to say yes.
And players left the bench, even a couple steps, and all the Knicks were suspended, and we lost that.
I think so.
We as
in you and Charlie.
Yeah, that's right. Just me and Charlie down by the schoolyard.
I feel like this is really where we've reached our apex.
Charlie Ward stand-up.
Corona potting.
We've been wanting to give this take, and I'll credit you with this take because you, like a stat hog that you are the Anthony Davis of Knicks history. You unearthed this truffle of Charlie Ward stat hoggery way before Corona hit.
Yeah, I did dig around on this one. One thing that's annoying is that we don't have reliable on-off numbers when you go back that far.
True.
That's an irritation because I think they should though. I don't know if I remember correctly. On-off stats start maybe in like 2000 maybe. And this was the 98-99 Knicks season. No, 97-98.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're shit out of luck when it comes to on-off stats.
We're just gonna have to crown him the king of that season.
Charlie Ward, Knicks legend.
Yep.
Also did some stuff blaming Jews for killing Jesus.
Did he?
Yeah, that was him.
When?
In the locker room. It was a big scandal. It was a New York Times or New York Magazine story about how under Mark Jackson, the Knicks were very religious.
Oh, yeah. No one wants to play with Marcus. The photo was Marcus Camby with the PlayStation controller because he was not religious.
Wasn't Mark Jackson on that team? Or maybe he had left. But it was about how religious the Knicks were.
It's Allen Houston led those sermons on the road. Those fiery sermons. I mean, the Knicks are still a God squad. And
I was going to say, this falls into your current theory.
I mean, it's almost shaped by that New York Times Magazine story. But I like people who believe in things, and it's just a way to frame the way they conduct their business. It's like they have certain thoughts that influence their decisions.
If I remember correctly, the Knicks had to release statements about it and sort of disavowing what those players had said in the locker room, and it was specifically about the Jews killing Jesus.
Not good. Do you miss I miss my childhood in general, but I do miss kind of players rolling up after a victory, be like, first, I'd like to thank God, the Lord and Savior, and then talk about the game.
Whist?
I am always, I log on. I take no whist days off, Ben. But people don't do that anymore. And when they gather in the center court to pray, I think the cameras don't really show that as much. It's a decision, I think, that ABC, ESPN, and NBA and TNT make.
So just to backtrack quickly into this article, because I just found it.
What's the title of it?
Well, the New York Times wrote about it, and in 2001, the article itself ran in Sunday New York Times Magazine right around
That's
that
the one.
period, like 2001.
Yeah.
I can't find the exact article, but here are some quotes from it that are mentioned. It was by a Jewish writer whose name is Eric Königsberg. And at one point, Königsberg said, Ward, addressing him by a nickname, it's just E, said, "Jews are stubborn, E, but tell me, why did they prosecute Jesus unless he knew something they didn't want to accept? They had his blood on their hands," Charlie Ward said. Perhaps there are reasons that Charlie Ward has been left in the dustbin of history despite his defensive dominance.
Maybe.
Houston,
yes.
using a Palm Pilot, then cited a passage in the New Testament, Matthew 26, verse 67. Then they spit in Jesus' face and hit him with their fists.
White Jesus, right? They're all talking about a white Jesus.
They're not talking about Jesus Shuttlesworth.
That's kind of a watchable movie still. These like people getting really aggressive about what to call this virus, and people getting aggressive about things that like kind of are bubbling under the surface at all times. I'm just like, there's so many morons out there, and I just wish all the people that I like and support, or just everybody, aren't the victims of these dumb people. But I don't even blame these people. Like Charlie Ward reading that thing is like, oh, you were taught this. This is systemic.
Well, also, if the media wasn't
not say
ravenously opposed to the success of Bernie Sanders, they might ask, is his problem in some southern states because he's a Jewish guy?
I mean, Andrew Yang, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, everyone has their challenge.
Or not even southern states, across the board. We don't talk about the fact that, Bernie Sanders is a Jewish guy and would be the first Jewish president. It never got brought up. It was like, another old white guy. Like, no, he's Jewish.
Come on. There was a swastika at one of his rallies.
That's true.
So it certainly was brought up.
No, people know he's Jewish. I'm just saying, as a stumbling block, we hear about gender all the time. No one ever mentioned the fact that he was Jewish.
Oh, really? See,
as a reason that people don't vote for him. I didn't see that happen that much.
I saw a little bit of that. I mean, surprisingly, you didn't see much of it with Pete Buttigieg.
I felt like I saw less about Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah, that was. I like that it wasn't a huge talking point. But Andrew Yang and Elizabeth Warren, I think, they couldn't overcome the way they optically looked on TV, which was tough because people are really, they grasp onto the things they want to. And when you look a certain way, it's different than the way you believe, or the way you are. I don't know.
Well, I think we can all take a measure we can all take solace in the words of Charlie Ward after this whole scandal, after the scandal broke. And he was apologetic, and he explained what he meant and why this was not offensive. I didn't mean to offend any one group because that's not what I'm about, Charlie Ward said. I have friends that are Jewish. Actually, my best friend is a Jewish guy, and his name is Jesus Christ. So therefore, I have no reason to offend any religion or person of a religion because my best friend is Jewish. Case closed.
Honestly, good enough for me, man. Like, whatever, like, fine. If Trump was like, one of my best friends is Chinese, I'd be like, all right, I'm done with this. I can't bother with this
but that
anymore,
friend
man.
is Jesus. He's not actually friends with Jesus, Kuo.
Right. My best friend, PF. Chang is his last name. PF Chang. That's who it is.
My best friend, Buddha.
Oh, that would be sweet. I'd be like, oh, wow. Yeah, the world is bullshit, man. And we just have to navigate it and not fucking lose our minds.
No chance. This has been yet another episode 1 of 5 this week of your favorite podcast's favorite podcast.
I love cookies.
Well, are we going to pod tomorrow?
I love cookies.
Maybe. We'll see. Let's play by ear.
2 weeks.
I love cookies.
All right.
Cookies.
Let us know, everyone.
Cookies.